Okay, let's add a forum. We see forums all the time. This is going to be an introduction forum. Oops. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that this one forum activity type is actually hiding several different forum types within it. So standard forum for general use is what we're used to. It's like Reddit. Anybody can come in and make a post and reply. We've also got the same thing, but in a different format. We've got a Q&A forum. I love Q&A forum. That's because Q&A forum is where a teacher will ask a question, give a prompt, and students will then answer that prompt. The cool thing about it is that students cannot see what each other has said until after they make their own answer submission. So you can ensure that people are doing their own cognitive labor, not just coming in and commenting, yeah, what Billy said. So that's pretty cool. For introduction forums, I like to use each person posts one discussion to help keep a rein in on things. Because at the beginning of a course, if you say, hey, everybody, come introduce yourself, tell us why you're taking this class, what your hobbies are, that kind of thing. You're always going to have one or two crazy students who make 5 posts, with pictures of their cats and all kinds of off-topic things, and they just get a little too excited about stuff. So if you limit it to each person posts one discussion, you can keep things tidy. Now let's look at some of these settings below. I'm going to click Expand All. I've got options around availability. So when is it due? When is the absolute date that it's going to be cut off? How many words am I going to require them to write? Do we want to have that word counter there? Do we want to have a maximum attachment size? Do we want this to be just a regular subscription mode so people can choose whether to subscribe, or do we want to force subscription, which means that users will get an email every time a new post is in this forum? Do we want to lock discussions after a period of time has passed? And notice that each of these settings on this page, they all have information. So if you're ever like, what the heck does that mean? You can always click on these icons for more information. The settings are a little bit different for every activity, but it's pretty much the same thing. So, don't fear it. Definitely feel enabled, feel empowered to come in here and set up some activities. Even if you're not sure what every setting means, give it a try. Threshold for blocking. So this is if somebody is coming in and posting too much. Are we going to do grades, or is it just going to be an open forum? With forums, when we talk about grading, we actually use the word ratings. Ratings is how we grade forums. And then every activity has this common module settings, and this one will say, okay, do you want it to be hidden? Do you want it to be visible? Do you want it to be not really visible, but not really hidden? That's kind of a limbo. The reason that you would do this is if you don't want the link to appear on the course page, but rather you want them to get into this activity by some other means. So I'll explain what that's like in just a second, but we're going to set ourselves up for that. You can give it an ID number. You can also establish group mode. In forums, group mode is particularly interesting because it puts partitions up between user groups. Now you have to establish groups in the course first, and we haven't gotten there, but it does allow for kind of, keeping everybody in their lane, so to speak. Next up, we have access restriction. So we can say, okay, you can't get to this forum until XYZ is done. So we can say, okay, you have to complete, you have to go to the Wikipedia before you can come here into this particular activity. Or let's do something a little bit more complicated. We can say, okay, it has to be before the end of the month, and you also have to put your, let's see, phone number. There has to be some information in your phone number. So in this reality, what we've got going on is the restrictions is that not only do you have to go to this Wikipedia page that we set up, but it has to be before the end of the month, and you have had to enter your phone number in your profile. Do you see how that's working? It's a little bit complicated. You guys see how, did you get this, so to speak? You can have multiple criteria that have to be met before a user can enter this particular activity.
Yeah, yes, we got it on national.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
Perfect. Sometimes people struggle with that, so I just want to be clear. So the activity completion piece, if we scroll down, we can see that we can establish activity completion for every activity or resource that we set up. So in this case, completion tracking by default is set to students can manually mark this activity as completed. And that means it's the honor system, and I don't like that. So I'm going to say show this activity as complete when certain conditions are met. So once I've got that going, it gives me all these criteria. So require review, that's not stringent enough. I'm going to say student must post 2 discussions or replies. So that it could be 2 replies, they don't have to post their own discussion. Or I can be more stringent and say, no, not that. Instead, I'm going to require 1 new discussion and 3 replies before this is considered complete. Okay. Now we can also tag this activity, and if you're using competency-based education, you can bring in competencies, but that is a big topic that we'll have to save for another time if you are using competency-based education. Once I've worked through all my settings, I can say save and return to course. And while that's that forum activity, we can see it's kind of grayed out, and it says available but not shown on course page. So if we come up here to the user menu, I can actually switch my role to a student and see what this course looks like from the student perspective. It's not there. See how I just don't see it? That's awesome. All right, so now that I've seen that, I want to return to my normal role. And there it is again. So remember earlier when we made this fire truck a link to Wikipedia? Well, I can actually copy this link address and turn editing on because that went away. And then I can come back to this fire truck and I can change where this link goes, right? So I'm gonna highlight it, I'm gonna say break the link. And then I'm gonna highlight it again and I'm gonna say make a new link. And I'm going to link it to that activity. Okay, now I'm going to save and return to course. And I just want to make sure that it works. So I'm going to open it in a new tab. Great, I can see it's a forum. It's the introduction forum that I just created. So now I'm going to switch my role again to student. And as a student, I want to make sure that when I click on this, it takes me to that activity. And sure enough, it does. And I can post a discussion topic and start carrying on with my content. Now, we can embed this link to this forum at the end of a course presentation in H5P. We can put it at the end of a book with questions. We can hide it like an Easter egg through the course. And that will ensure that the student has to complete whatever the previous activity is to be able to find that link to go to the next activity. So that's a sneaky way of making sure everybody is getting their work done. Let me come back to my course space.